I came up behind my wife's new man while he was enjoying dinner with her at that pricey fusion joint downtown, the same one she used to roll her eyes at, saying it was too fancy for folks like us. The lights were low, soft jazz murmured through the place, and candles flickered like they were trying too hard to make betrayal look romantic. She was leaned in close, laughing that phony, high-pitched giggle she only used when she was putting on a mask, pretending to be someone else. That laugh always meant one thing: she was chasing a thrill, chasing someone new. He never saw me coming. Not until I kicked his chair out from under him, straight to the floor. The crash hit the room like a power outage. Everything stopped. Conversations died. Forks froze in midair. And her face? That look when she finally processed who I was. Eyes wide, mouth open mid-laugh. It was the first real satisfaction I'd felt in a long damn time. I didn't shout. Didn't say a word. No threats. No begging. I grabbed that arrogant little punk by the collar and dragged him through the restaurant, ignoring the stunned silence, the phones popping out, the staff yelling for security. He tried to resist, but I was long past conversation. Outside, my truck was already running, engine purring like it knew the job. My boys were waiting back at the farm. They understood the plan. She followed me out, wobbling in those ridiculous heels like some washed-up soap actress in a dramatic finale. "Terence, please, don't do this." "I swear, it didn't mean anything," she cried out behind me. I didn't look at her. Just shoved him into the back seat and slammed the door shut. Then she grabbed my arm, sobbing like a child. "Don't take everything. Don't destroy my life over one mistake." That's when I really looked at her. And I mean really looked. She wasn't the same woman who once painted our apartment walls barefoot, wearing my hoodie, laughing with paint smeared on her cheek. That girl was gone, replaced by this stranger with fake lashes, blood-red lipstick, and eyes so hollow they barely reflected the light. "I'm not wrecking anything," I said, cold and calm. "I'm just wrapping up what you kicked off." And I did. I took it all. The house, the car, the savings account, even the dogs. She loved them more than she ever loved me. I took the keys right out of her shaking hands before pulling away. But let me tell you something, that wasn't the beginning. That was the breaking point. You want to know how I ended up like this? A plain, loyal man, turning into someone who plans revenge like a crime boss? Buckle up. Because it all started with a lipstick smear. Not on my clothes. On hers. It was a Tuesday. She came home late, again. Said it was work. Always work. And like a damn fool, I believed her. But when she tossed her coat on the couch, I saw it. A faint red smudge on her blouse collar. Too dark to be hers. Now, I ain't no expert in makeup, but I know her shades the way I know the sound of my own boots. That color wasn't one of them. I didn't say a thing that night. Just watched her undress, go through the motions, like nothing sacred had been shattered between us. I laid next to her, eyes open, pretending to sleep while my thoughts spiraled into places I never wanted to visit. My chest felt like it was being crushed. My jaw locked so hard it hurt to breathe. The next morning, I started digging. Phone logs, texts, credit card charges. She didn't even bother covering her tracks. Dinner bills, hotel stays, always booked under Jessica, her middle name. Real subtle. But the worst part? I saw them. Inside my truck. The one she claimed needed repairs. He was brushing her hair back, smiling. She laughed. Let him kiss her neck. Didn't resist. Didn't pull away. Just beamed at him, like a teenager falling in love for the first time. You ever feel betrayal? I'm talking the real thing? It doesn't come with rage. Not right away. It feels like watching your own life burn in slow motion. Like every brick of the life you built starts collapsing backwards. And suddenly, you don't know what's real anymore. So I started planning. Not out of hate. Out of clarity. Cold, sharp, laser-focused clarity. I'd been lied to. Tossed aside like a spare tire. And I was done being the good guy. So I bided my time. Tracked everything. Studied their patterns. And when she made that dinner reservation, yeah, same place we toasted our anniversary 2 years back. That's when I knew. It was go time. But the farm? That was the real stage. Not for violence. For truth. And what happened next? Well, you're gonna want to hear that. Because if you think this part was crazy, just wait till I tell you what went down after we got there. That ride to the farm? Silent as a grave. Not a peep from the back seat. His name was Chad, by the way. Of course it was. Some guy with a name like Jimbro and hair that probably cost more than my boots. No backbone, though. Just sat there, breathing heavy, watching the trees whip past the windows like it finally hit him. Real men don't settle things with talk. I kept catching glimpses of him in the rearview mirror, sweat shining on his temple, his lips twitching like he might beg for mercy any second. Part of me hoped he would, but he didn't. Not yet. Ella, my wife, was following us in her own car. I told her to come. Told her if she stayed home, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. She was crying when I said that, mascara bleeding down her face like war paint. Didn't faze me. When we rolled up to the barn, it looked like something out of a ghost story. Weathered wood, rusted-out hinges, and a busted wind vane that hadn't turned since the twister hit in '07. But inside, it was a whole different scene. My guys had staged it like something out of a gritty Tarantino flick. Low lights, a single chair dead center, rope hanging nearby, not torture level, just enough to shake the truth out of someone with a weak spine. Luis and Evan were already there. Nodded as I walked in. No questions. They knew the deal. Loyalty first. I hauled Chad inside and threw him into the chair. He howled like a mutt that just got kicked, but still, he didn't say a damn word. Just sat there in that smug silence like he still thought this was some kind of prank. You know who I am? I asked, stepping close. He nodded, slow and nervous. Terence, look man. Nope. I cut him off. You don't get to speak. Not yet. Ella burst in seconds later, her heels hitting the floor like gunshots. Terence, please, don't do this, she begged. He's not worth it. I turned toward her. You're right, I said. He's not. Then I pointed a finger at her chest. But you? You were everything. And you threw it all away. For him. She looked like she wanted to argue, like always. She never came unarmed. There was always a story, an excuse, some twisted version of the truth. It wasn't like that, she stammered, lips trembling. No. I snapped. Then go ahead. Tell me what it was like. Tell me why my wife was sneaking into motels using a fake name. Tell me why I heard her moaning his name in my damn truck. She went white, like the blood had drained straight out of her. I turned back to Chad. You know what's funny? I said, leaning in. You probably figured I'd throw a punch or two, scream, maybe put up a Facebook post with some screenshots. But I'm not some heartbroken fool typing into a void. I'm the guy who built her whole world from scratch. And now? I'm the guy who's going to burn it to the ground. That hit him. Suddenly, the words came spilling out of his mouth like a broken dam. It was her idea, man. She said she was tired of being in your shadow. Said you were obsessed with work and always trying to control everything. Said you barely even touched her anymore. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Hell no. Because it was just plain pathetic. Touch her. I repeated, shaking my head. You think this was about sex? About attention? If she'd just asked, I would have set the whole damn world on fire for her. Ella flinched like I'd slapped her. She looked at me like I was some stranger. Good. I didn't know who she was anymore either. You were bored, I said, my voice flat as stone. So you lit a match and burned down everything we built, just to feel something. I'm sorry, she whispered. No, I said. You're just sorry you got caught. Then I reached into my coat and pulled out the file I'd been carrying. Photos. Credit card receipts. Hotel logs. Even a recording of her whispering to him that I was just a phase, something she needed to grow out of. I let it all fall to the ground between them like ash from a fire. It's done, I said low. The prenup? Voided. Infidelity clause. The business? It's in my name. The savings? Already transferred. And the dogs? They're staying with me. You get nothing, Ella. You handed it all over, for cheap thrills with a nobody. She collapsed. Right there on the floor of that dusty barn. On her knees, sobbing into the dirt. Please, Terence, she wept. Don't take everything. But I already had. Chad still hadn't moved. Sat frozen, eyes glued to the floor. Too embarrassed to look up, too scared to run. And that, believe it or not, that was just the start. Ella stayed right there on her knees. Mascara streaking down her cheeks like the lies finally started bleeding out. You'd expect someone in that spot to beg with a little dignity. Not Ella. Even through the tears, she had to twist the knife. This is your fault, she snapped, her voice ragged and hoarse. I blinked. Luis shifted his stance like he was ready for whatever came next, but I raised a hand and kept him back. I needed to hear it. Every word. You're standing in a barn, I said slow and even, while your boyfriend's trembling like a chihuahua in a thunderstorm, and you're telling me this is my fault. You stopped seeing me, she shouted. You never noticed me anymore. You were always working, she said. Always caught up in your projects, your friends, your damn business. Our business, I corrected steady. No, she snapped. Your business. I was just the pretty face who smiled at dinners and played the good wife. And cheated. I cut in, ice in my voice. Don't skip over the part where you spread your legs for some cologne-soaked clown who probably thinks aftershave is a personality. Chad winced at that, still couldn't bring himself to lift his eyes. Pathetic. You think I wanted this, she cried out, tears in her voice. You think I planned for it to go this far? No, I said flatly. I think you planned on never being found out. For a second, the silence wrapped around us, thick and heavy like a wet tarp. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Deep down, she knew I wasn't wrong. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't show up overnight. It starts in the small things. The missed texts, the forced smiles, the passwords that suddenly get changed. It's slow, quiet, like bleeding out from 100 little cuts. And all that time, she'd been slicing into me while I stood there, blind and trusting. She rose to her feet then, shaky in those heels, but still trying to act like she had something left to stand on. You think taking everything makes you a hero? She sneered. You're no better than a monster. I stepped in close, real close. Our faces just inches apart. I never wanted to be the monster, Ella, I said, low and even. But you handed me the blade and dared me to swing it. Then she slapped me. Didn't hurt much. It wasn't about the sting, it was about the guts. Like she still believed she had the right to be mad, like she still saw herself as the wounded party. Louise moved, but I held out my hand. It's fine, I muttered. All she's got left are cheap shots. That's when Chad finally piped up. Can I go? I spun around so fast the chair creaked under him as he flinched. Go. I snapped. You laid hands on another man's wife, and now you think you get to walk away like this was some awkward misunderstanding. I didn't know she was married at first, he blurted out. Ella didn't argue, didn't deny it. Oh, so you're just some random distraction? I said bitterly. A little toy she used to forget how it feels to be loved? Perfect. I walked over to him, leaned down close enough he could smell the heat rising off me. You're not walking out of this barn thinking you dodged a bullet. You're gonna sit here and learn what loss looks like. Because she lied to you too, didn't she? She fed you dreams. Promised a new life. Swore she was gonna leave me. He nodded slowly, shame on his face. Yeah, I said. She's real good at stories. Ella looked like she wanted to scream, but the words never came. For the first time, she had nothing left to spin. I turned my back on both of them. Stay here tonight, I told Louise. Don't let either of them leave. Evan motioned from the shadows. Wanting to set up the camera? No, I said sharply. We don't film garbage. This isn't entertainment. This is closure. And that's exactly what it was. The beginning of the end. People throw the word closure around like it's a tidy little bow you wrap around a broken heart. Like it's this neat, clean ending you can hand to your feelings and walk away lighter. But that's a lie. Real closure? It's chaos. It's loud. It's messy. Sometimes it howls. After I left that barn, I didn't head home. Couldn't. I just drove. Nowhere specific. Just far enough to quiet the echoes of Ella's fake cries still screaming in my skull. Radio was off. My hands gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the earth. And in the passenger seat? Silence. The kind that doesn't just sit there. It presses down on you, heavy in your chest. I don't know how long I drove. An hour, maybe 2. Time didn't matter. What mattered was not letting the rage eat me alive. Eventually, I spotted a worn-out diner off the highway and pulled in. One of those places where the waitresses call you Han and the coffee tastes like old regrets. I sat there with a full mug I didn't touch, eyes locked on the nothing outside, trying to pinpoint where everything went sideways. But it wasn't just one moment. It was a slow rot. The kind you don't notice until the whole damn house caves in. Ella? She didn't always seem like this. Or maybe she did, and I was just too in love to see it. When we first met, she was magnetic. A laugh like thunder and eyes that whispered promises before she ever said a word. I thought I struck gold. Turns out, it was just glitter-covered plastic. I gave her everything. Built a business from scratch. Made sure she never had to want for a thing. I busted my back so she could live like royalty. While I was out grinding, bleeding for the life we were building, she was laying up in hotel rooms calling some other guy baby. That's the part that hits hardest. Not just the betrayal. Not just the cheating. It's the damn audacity. I left the diner around midnight. The lot was empty. Just the hum of a flickering streetlight and the sound of my boots crunching gravel. I looked up at the stars, trying to remember who I was before all this. Before her. And wondering who the hell I'd be now. Back at the farm, Louise was texting me updates. Still here. Chad's quiet. She hasn't stopped pacing. Good. I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. When I got home, the place felt like a shrine to a life that didn't exist anymore. The couch where we used to cuddle up and dream together. The hallway where we once danced, half drunk and laughing. And the bedroom. I stood there in the doorway, staring at that bed. The same one where she used to whisper that I was her forever, while clearly craving someone else's touch. But I didn't cry. Didn't shake. I just felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything that made me me and left a shell behind. But that shell? It had a plan now. The next morning, I got to work. Put the house up for sale. Changed every password. Shut down the joint accounts. Froze her cards. Called my lawyer. Then I drove straight back to the barn. She was outside waiting, looking wrecked, hair tangled, eyes sunken. Chad was still inside, hunched over in that same chair, drenched in sweat and steeped in regret. Ella stood when she saw me. Terence, please, she started. We both made mistakes. We don't have to destroy each other. I tilted my head. You already did, I said quietly. I'm just finishing the job. Please, she said again, voice starting to crack. We can fix this. No, I told her. You shattered something that doesn't get glued back together. She reached out and touched my hand. I let her, for half a second, long enough to remind myself what I used to feel. Then I pulled away. This, I said, motioning around us, this is the closest thing to mercy you're ever getting. Because closure? It doesn't always come wrapped in peace. Sometimes, it shows up as a scar you learn to live with. And mine? Mine was just starting to form. She followed me into the barn like a ghost, clinging to whatever was left of her soul. The heels were gone. Her makeup was a mess. Hair pulled back in a sloppy ponytail that made her look younger, but not innocent. Never again. The crying had stopped. And somehow, that made it worse. Chad was still in the same chair, slumped and soaked in sweat. Head down like a dog that knows it did something wrong. I didn't even glance at him. He wasn't the main issue. He was the symptom. Ella was the disease. I stepped inside and slowly pulled the barn door shut behind me. The old wood creaked like it understood we were about to bury something. You know what keeps looping in my head? I asked, pacing the dirt floor while she lingered near the door like a statue. That weekend in Memphis. You remember? Said it was a girl's trip. She swallowed hard. I could see her bracing. Terence. Don't, I snapped. Save the performance. You posted a pic of a coffee mug, a mountain view. Called it a peaceful little getaway. Sent me a voice message saying how much you missed me. I stopped and turned toward her. You weren't in Memphis. You were 2 towns over. Motel. Room 209. Under Chad's name. She didn't even try to deny it. And that's when it clicked. Every single word that ever came out of her mouth, even the I love yous, had been dipped in poison. You want the full list? I asked, pulling out my phone. Because I've got timestamps. Locations. Every receipt. You weren't even slick about it. You didn't just cheat. You insulted me with how careless you were. She stared at the ground. I didn't think it'd go this far, she whispered. No, I corrected. You didn't think I'd go this far. Her eyes met mine. Cold. Empty. I was lonely. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Lonely? I said. No, you were bored. And instead of talking, instead of fixing it, you torched the whole damn house just to feel a spark. Then I turned to Chad. He tensed before I even moved. Let me ask you something, I said. Did she ever talk about our wedding? Did she tell you about her vows? About the tears when she swore to be faithful? Chad gave a tiny nod. Ashamed. And you still kept seeing her, I said. She told me it was over between you two, he muttered. Said you were just roommates with rings. That line hit me, not because it was the truth, but because I knew she believed it was. Then Ella spoke again, barely loud enough to hear. I felt like a ghost in our own home. Terence. I just needed to feel something. Real. I turned toward her. So you chased the easiest lie you could find. Went looking for the fastest thrill. Don't act like you were after something meaningful. You just wanted something new. She didn't argue. Let me ask you something, I said. Were you ever planning to tell me? Was there ever a moment where you thought about being honest? No, she said quietly. That single word? It did more damage than every lie she ever told. I stood there frozen, jaw locked, heart gone completely numb. You were just gonna keep smiling at me, huh? Let me kiss you, hold you, tell you I loved you, while you snuck out to play pretend with him. She stayed quiet. And that silence? It was louder than a confession. I turned toward Chad and pointed straight at the barn door. Get out. He blinked, confused. What? You heard me, I said. Walk. You don't get to hide behind her anymore. You made your choices, now go live with them. Just do it far away from me. He scrambled up like a scared rabbit and didn't wait to be told twice. The barn door slammed shut behind him, leaving just me and her. She opened her mouth again, probably gearing up for one last plea. But I raised my hand. I'm done listening. And I'm in every word. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was the one steering the wheel again. But I still couldn't tell what hurt more, everything she'd already taken from me, or what I knew I was about to do next. I stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger breaking into memories that weren't hers. Ella didn't move. Just stood stiff by the barn window, arms wrapped around herself, like she thought I might soften if she looked small enough. But that version of me? She'd killed him. Slow and silent. With a smirk. A text. A lie whispered under motel sheets. The next day, I drove back to the house. Alone. No music. No noise. Just the road and me. I didn't go back for closure. I went back to remember what we used to be, before she tore it all to hell. The place still looked lived in. Blanket draped over the couch, like always. Her favorite mug sitting in the sink. The smell of her perfume still lingering in the hall like a sick joke. Every room held some piece of a life I thought was real. But it was the photo wall that finally broke me. 12 framed pictures. Our wedding. That first Miami trip. Her blowing out the candles at 30. That smile I used to think was pure joy. Now it looked more like an apology that never made it to words. And I should have known. I remembered walking in on her crying in the bathroom once. She said it was nothing. Blamed it on hormones. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was just another act. Either way, I don't trust a single tear she ever shed anymore. I went out to the garage, grabbed a box, and started packing up her things. It wasn't rage. It was survival. Her presence in that house was toxic. If I didn't clear her out, I'd breathe her in again. And I couldn't risk that. Her closet was like a war zone of luxury. Dresses she only wore after we fought. Shoes that cost more than my truck's tires. Bought on sale, she'd say, like that made it okay. Everything felt like a costume, like she was dressing up to be someone else, even in private. I dumped it all into boxes. The jewelry. The lingerie I now knew wasn't just for me. Even the perfume that used to turn me on? Now it made my stomach twist. Then there were her sticky notes. Little quotes like, "Love wins," stuck to the mirror. Sure, love won. And then it left. By the time I was done, it was after midnight. I sat on the bed, alone. The silence around me was the only thing that didn't lie. That's when I found it. A letter. Tucked away in the drawer next to the bed where I kept old birthday cards and pocket change. It was sealed. My name on the front. Just Terence. No heart. No, I love you. Just cold, precise ink on fancy paper. I stared at it for a good minute before I opened it. Terence. If you're reading this, then I guess things didn't turn out how I hoped. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that. I wanted to feel alive again. You were always so strong, so focused. And I started to feel like I was disappearing next to you. Like I didn't matter anymore. Chad made me feel seen. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. You didn't deserve what I did. But I didn't know how to tell you I was drowning. I didn't know how to be yours anymore. I'm sorry. I didn't bother finishing the letter. Just folded it up and set it aside. I'd seen enough. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wanted understanding. But you can't set a person on fire and then ask them to feel sorry for how cold your hands got in the process. I dropped the letter into the fireplace and watched the flames swallow her words, one pathetic regret at a time. Sure, it felt symbolic. But it was more than that. It was the final piece of her I'd ever hold on to. Because I wasn't her husband anymore. I was the man who survived her. And the man who was about to make damn sure she never came crawling back. When I woke up the next morning, I was still on the couch. Didn't plan it like that. Just couldn't bring myself to sleep in that bed we once shared. That bed felt cursed now. A crime scene. The place where trust bled out quietly between the sheets, smothered by whispered lies. I made myself a cup of black coffee. No cream, no sugar. Just bitter. Like everything else in my life now. But the plan? It was already in motion. The house was getting transferred into my name only. The prenup, the one she never bothered to really read, turned out to be my scalpel. Her cheating nullified her claim to the business, the savings, the cars, everything she thought was half hers. She used to call me boring. Turns out I wasn't the calm. I was the damn storm. By midday, I was standing outside my attorney's office, just as Ella pulled up in the car I was about to reclaim. She stepped out slow, wearing the same coat I gave her last Christmas. Funny thing, it still had the tag on it. She never wore it before. Only now, when she needed to look like something she wasn't. Polished. Put together. We sat across from each other at a long, glossy conference table, saying nothing. The lawyer ran through the checklist, documents, signatures, property transfers. Ella didn't meet my eyes. Not once. Her hands trembled, but her face stayed stone still. That was always her way. The tears only came when someone else was watching. This agreement grants full ownership of the residence, the business, and all registered vehicles to Mr. Collins, the lawyer explained. Due to the terms of the prenuptial agreement, and based on evidence of infidelity, the court has authorized immediate dissolution of shared assets. Ella gave a stiff nod, eyes locked on the paperwork like it might bite her. I'll step out and give you two a moment, the lawyer said, rising and leaving the room. She finally looked up. This isn't justice, she whispered. It's revenge. I leaned forward, fingers interlocked, elbows on the table. No, Ella. It's called balance. You had your thrill. You had your excitement. Now I get my peace. You didn't lose everything. I didn't take it. You gave it away. Her bottom lip quivered. I did love you. No, I said calmly. You needed me. And once that made you feel small, you found someone weaker. Someone who made you feel important again. That's not love. That's survival. She stood up fast, voice sharp. So that's it? You torture whole life and just walk out clean. I stood too. I don't walk out clean, I said. I walk out whole. You're the one who walks out empty. She slapped the stack of papers onto the table, voice cracking with rage. One day you'll regret this. You'll realize you destroyed someone who was just trying to feel alive again. I tilted my head slightly. I didn't destroy you, Ella. I revealed you. And now you get to rebuild. Alone. Then I turned and walked out without a second glance. Didn't need one. Outside, the sky hung low and gray. The kind of weather that made the whole world feel hushed. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt calm. It felt like the storm had finally passed, not looming in front of me anymore, but shrinking in the rear view. I climbed into my truck, turned the key, and let the engine rumble to life. As I pulled away, I saw her standing on the sidewalk. Small. Not like the woman who broke me. Not even like the woman I once vowed forever to. Just a stranger now. Someone I used to know. I didn't hate her anymore. But that didn't mean I'd ever forgive her. Some wounds cut too deep to heal clean. And some wars end with nothing left standing except the man who had the strength to walk away. The days that came after were still, unnervingly quiet. No texts. No calls. Not a single voice message begging for one more shot. Ella disappeared like a storm that had done its damage and moved on, leaving nothing behind but wreckage. And I didn't chase her. Not once. I always thought heartbreak would come with fireworks. Chaos. Yelling, broken glass, maybe even cops at the door. But the real kind? It creeps in like fog. You feel it in the mornings, when your hand reaches for a body that isn't there anymore. You hear it in the clatter of a fork on a dinner plate, where there used to be laughter and little glances. Now it's just silence and a weight in your chest. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was rebuilding. Those next few weeks, I buried myself in work. Real work. I poured everything I had into the company, not to prove something, not to win some invisible battle. Just because I needed to remind myself that I could still build. Even from rubble. People started to notice. Old friends reached out, some I hadn't heard from in ages, others who'd heard whispers through the grapevine. They all had something to say. She never deserved you. You're better off. I never liked her anyway. All kind words. All useless. Because unless you've had to pack away the life you thought you were building with someone, tape it up in boxes and throw it out like old junk, you don't really get it. About a month later, a letter showed up in the mail. No return address. Just my name on the front. I knew that handwriting like I knew my own breath. Ella. I stared at it for a long while. I didn't open it out of curiosity. I opened it because I needed to cut that final thread. Terence. You were right. I didn't know what I wanted. I thought I wanted freedom. Adventure. Something wild. But what I really wanted was to feel chosen. And I see now, you did choose me. Every damn day. In ways I didn't deserve. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not sure I've earned the right. I just want you to know. I see it now. Everything you gave. Everything I broke. I'm sorry, B. I folded it and slid it into the drawer where I keep old receipts and appliance warranties. Not because I needed to keep it, but because I needed to remember. Sometimes, even liars manage to tell the truth. Just too damn late. I didn't write back. Some things don't need a reply. A few afternoons later, I found myself standing in the old barn again. Empty now. Still, just dancing in the shafts of light. I stood in the middle of the room, right where Chad once sat. The chair was gone. The weight of what happened wasn't. I let my hand trail along one of the old wood beams and exhaled. This place had seen the ugliest version of me, but it also saw me come back to life. Funny how pain does that. How it sharpens you, refines you. Before I left, I pulled out my pocket knife and carved a few words into the beam. I survived her,